The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls were covered with the flags of 200 species, and at its center, on a raised platform, sat the 12 most powerful beings in the known universe. Admiral Kang Do-hun stood at the back of the human section and watched. He was 58 years old, and he had spent 40 of those years serving Earth. His face showed nothing. His eyes showed everything. Ambassador Park Yuna walked to the speaker's platform. She was 42, with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. Today, she wore the black and gold of United Earth. Today, she would fight one last time. Honored Council, she began. Her voice was calm. 300 years ago, humanity joined this assembly. We were young. We were eager. We believed in the promise of galactic unity. The alien delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked bored. Others whispered to each other. A few laughed quietly. Park Yuna continued. In 300 years, human soldiers have fought in 47 wars. Not our wars. Your wars. We have bled on worlds whose names we cannot pronounce. For causes we did not believe in. 200 million humans have died wearing council uniforms. She paused. The hall was a little quieter now. In 300 years, human engineers have built your space stations, repaired your ships, and maintained your infrastructure. Human farmers have fed 17 species through famines. Human doctors have cured plagues that would have ended civilizations. Admiral Kang watched the alien faces. Some were uncomfortable now. Good. And what has humanity received in return? Park Yuna's voice grew harder. Our colonies pay taxes 5 times higher than any other species. Our technology is taken and shared without payment. Our people are treated as servants in your cities. And now, today, you ask for 2 million more soldiers. She turned to face the Helix collective representative directly. He was a tall creature with silver skin and 6 arms. His name was Virith, and he had proposed the conscription order. Counselor Virith, she said, the Vorlon border conflict is a war between the Vorlon Empire and the Crescent Alliance. Humanity has no stake in this fight. Our worlds are not threatened. Our people are not involved. Why should we send our sons and daughters to die? Virith stood. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never been told no. Ambassador Park, he said, humanity's role in this council has always been clear. Your species is young. You lack the wisdom of older civilizations. But you breed quickly, and you fight well. These are your gifts to the galaxy. A few delegates laughed. The Vorlon conflict requires soldiers, Virith continued. Humans are available. This is simply the natural order. Park Yuna stared at him. The natural order? Yes. Virith smiled with too many teeth. Every species has its place. Humans are useful beasts of burden. Nothing more. Nothing less. You should be grateful we allow you a seat in this hall at all. The laughter spread. More delegates joined in. 300 years of service, and this was how they saw humanity. Beasts of burden. Admiral Kang Do-hun felt something cold settle in his chest. It was not anger. Anger was too hot, too fast. This was something deeper. Park Yuna did not flinch. She turned back to the full council. I see, she said quietly. Thank you for your honesty, Counselor Virith. It is the first honest thing this council has said to humanity in 3 centuries. She walked back to the human section. The vote was called. 187 species voted in favor of conscripting 2 million humans. 11 abstained. 2 voted against. Humanity had lost. Again. But this time was different. Admiral Kang stepped forward. He carried a small data device in his hand. Before we accept the council's decision, he said, I would like to share something with my fellow delegates. He activated the device. Holographic documents appeared in the air above the chamber. Thousands of pages. Secret communications. Hidden orders. Buried reports. For the past 50 years, Kang said, I have collected evidence. Evidence that the Galactic Council has deliberately suppressed human technological advancement. Evidence that our research facilities have been sabotaged. Evidence that our scientists have been assassinated. Evidence that humanity has been kept weak on purpose. The hall fell silent. The laughter died. You feared us, Kang continued. You saw what humans could do, and you were afraid. So you put chains on us. Invisible chains, but chains all the same. You made us need you, while making sure we could never become your equals. Counselor Virith stood again. These accusations are true, Kang interrupted. Every word, every document. And now every human watching this broadcast knows it too. Across the galaxy, on every human world, people were watching. Billions of eyes, billions of hearts, and in those hearts, something was changing. The love they once felt for the Council was dying, and something else was being born. Park Yuna stepped forward one last time. The United Earth Parliament has voted, she announced. The vote was unanimous. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Guards moved toward the human section, but it was too late. Park Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. You called us beasts of burden. You laughed at our service. You stole our future. But you forgot one thing. She leaned closer to the microphone. Beasts of burden can walk away. All across the galaxy, human ships received the signal. On space stations, human workers put down their tools. On military bases, human soldiers lowered their weapons. On colony worlds, human farmers stopped their harvests. And then, together, they left. 10,000 ships activated their jump drives at the same moment. The flash of light was visible from 100 worlds. When it faded, the humans were gone. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, Counselor Vireth watched the empty human section. The chairs where humans had sat for 3 centuries were now vacant. The flag of United Earth had been taken down. They will come back, he said to the other delegates. They need us. Where else can they go? The other delegates nodded and agreed. Humans were young and foolish. They would realize their mistake. They would return, begging for forgiveness. Virith sat back in his chair and smiled. He had no idea what was coming. Far away, on the bridge of the flagship Sejong, Admiral Kang Do-hun watched the stars streak past. Beside him, Ambassador Park Yuna stood with her arms crossed. Do you think we made the right choice? She asked. Kang was quiet for a long moment. I think, he said slowly, that we should have made this choice 100 years ago. The Sejong jumped into hyperspace. Behind it, the galaxy continued turning. The Council continued laughing. And humanity continued moving forward, alone, free, and very, very angry. 3 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy. Captain Han Ji-woo stood on the bridge of her patrol ship, the Baiko, and watched the border. Behind her was human space. In front of her was everything else. And between them was a line that no alien was allowed to cross. She was 31 years old, with dark eyes and a face that rarely smiled. She had joined the military at 18, expecting to fight the Council's wars. Instead, she had watched humanity break free. Now she guarded that freedom with everything she had. Captain, her sensor officer called out. We have contacts. 12 ships approaching from Sector 7. Ji-woo turned to the main screen. 12 vessels, moving fast. Their shapes were familiar. Helix Collective. Trading ships. Open a channel, she ordered. The communication screen flickered to life. A Helix face appeared, silver-skinned and desperate. Human vessel, the alien said. We request permission to enter your space. Please. We are refugees. Ji-woo studied the alien's face. 3 years ago, she might have felt sympathy. 3 years ago, she might have remembered that not all Helix were like Counselor Virith, but 3 years had changed many things. Negative, she said. Human space is closed to all Council species. Turn back or be destroyed. But we are dying, the alien cried. Our worlds are burning. The Vorlon conflict has spread. There is nowhere else to go. Ji-woo's expression did not change. That is not our concern. You have 60 seconds to reverse course, the alien begged. It pleaded. It offered everything it had. But Ji-woo simply waited. When 60 seconds passed, she gave the order. Warning shots exploded across the convoy's path. The Helix ships turned and fled. Jiwoo watched them go. She felt nothing. The galaxy had taught humanity a hard lesson about mercy. Now humanity was teaching that lesson back. Far away, on Earth, a young engineer named Choi Tae-ho was changing the future. He was 27 years old, with messy hair and clothes that were always stained with machine oil. He worked in a laboratory that officially did not exist, on a project that officially was not happening, and today, that project was finally complete. It works, he whispered, staring at the data on his screen. It actually works. Project Sunrise. A weapon that could crack planets. A defense system that could stop any fleet. 3 years ago, this technology would have been impossible. The Council had made sure of that, but without their sabotage, without their restrictions, human science had exploded forward. Tae-ho picked up his communicator and called Admiral Kang Do-hun. The old man's face appeared on the screen, older and more tired than before, but still sharp. Admiral, Tae-ho said, Project Sunrise is complete. We can begin production immediately. Kang was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, sir. Lock it away, Engineer Choi. Store the designs in the deepest vault we have. We will not use this weapon unless we have no other choice. Tae-ho frowned. But Admiral, with this we could destroy them? Kang finished. Yes, we could burn every Council world to ash. We could make them pay for every human they killed, every dream they stole. But then what? Then we become them. Then we become the monsters they always said we were. Tae-ho understood. He did not like it, but he understood. Humanity had not left the Council to become conquerors. Humanity had left to become free. Yes, Admiral, he said. I will secure the project. Kang nodded and ended the call. Tae-ho began the lockdown procedures. The most powerful weapon in the galaxy would sleep in the darkness, waiting for a day that might never come. Across the galaxy, the consequences of humanity's departure were becoming clear. The Vorlan border conflict, which should have ended in months, had become an endless war. Without human soldiers, neither side could win. Millions died, worlds burned, and the fighting spread. Space stations that humans had maintained for centuries began to fail. Life support systems broke down, reactors overloaded. The Galactic Council sent their own engineers to fix the problems, but their own engineers were not good enough. They had relied on humans for too long. Food shipments stopped. Human agricultural worlds had fed a dozen species. Now those species starved. Emergency rations ran out within months. Governments collapsed. Riots erupted. And in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the delegates who had laughed at humanity were no longer laughing. General Yoon Nari received the reports every day. She was 50 years old, with gray hair and cold eyes. She had been a soldier all her life, and now she commanded Earth's Border Defense Initiative. She read the latest intelligence briefing and smiled grimly. The Helix Collective was dying. Their economy had collapsed. Their military was fighting 3 civil wars at once, and the plague that had started in their outer colonies was spreading faster than anyone expected. Poetic justice, she murmured. Her aide, a young lieutenant named Shin Bora, looked up from her own reports. Ma'am, the Helix, Yoon explained. They called us beasts of burden. They said we should be grateful for the chance to serve them. Now their empire is falling apart, and they have no one to blame but themselves. Bora nodded slowly. She was only 23, too young to remember the worst of the Council's abuses. But she had studied history. She understood why her elders felt no sympathy for the dying alien civilizations. General, Bora said, we have intercepted another Helix diplomatic transmission. They are preparing to send an envoy to our border. Yoon raised an eyebrow. An envoy? Yes, ma'am. They want to negotiate. They want to ask for help. Yoon laughed. It was not a kind sound. Help. They want help. After everything they did to us, they expect us to save them. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Seoul stretched to the horizon. 50 million people lived in this city alone. 50 million humans who were free because their ancestors had found the courage to walk away. Tell our border patrol to let the envoy approach, Yoon said. Let them deliver their message. And then tell them no. Bora hesitated. Just no? Just no. No explanation, no negotiation, no hope. Yoon turned back to her aide. They taught us that mercy is weakness. We are simply good students. 1 week later, a Helix diplomatic shuttle arrived at the edge of human space. The pilot was none other than Counselor Virith himself, the same alien who had called humanity beasts of burden 3 years ago. His message was transmitted to the human patrol ships. His voice was different now. No more arrogance. No more contempt. Just fear. Please, he said. We are dying. Our worlds are burning. Our people are starving. We were wrong. We were so wrong. Please, help us. Captain Han Jiwoo received the message on the bridge of the Baiko. She listened to every word. She watched the alien's face, saw the desperation in his many eyes. Then she pressed the reply button. No, she said, and she cut the channel. The Helix shuttle floated at the border for 3 days, sending message after message. Each time, the human response was the same. One word. No. Finally, the shuttle turned and limped back toward dying space. On Earth, Admiral Kang Do-hun heard about the encounter. He sat alone in his office for a long time, thinking about the choice humanity had made. Was it right? Was it just? Or had they simply become a different kind of monster? He did not know. Perhaps no one could know. But one thing was certain. Humanity would never kneel again. Whatever came next, they would face it standing tall. The stars continued to burn. The galaxy continued to crumble. And in the silence of human space, a new civilization was being born. Strong, proud, alone, and watching. Always watching. 7 years after humanity walked away, the Galactic Council died. Not with a bang, not with a grand final battle. It simply fell apart, piece by piece, like a building whose foundation had rotted away. One morning, the delegates arrived at the Great Hall to find that there was no longer a council to attend. 12 species had already withdrawn. 30 more had stopped sending representatives. The rest could not agree on anything. The last session ended with 3 delegates physically attacking each other. The guards refused to intervene. What was the point? On Earth, Lieutenant Shin Bora watched it all from her intelligence station. She was 26 now, sharp-eyed and observant, promoted 3 times for her excellent work. Her job was to track the collapse of galactic civilization. It was not a happy job. The Crescent Alliance has fractured into 17 factions, she reported to her superiors. The Vorlan Empire has lost control of its outer territories. The Helix Collective is down to 4 functioning worlds, and the plague continues to spread. She paused, looking at the numbers on her screen. Numbers that represented deaths. Billions of deaths. Current estimated casualties across former Council space, 11 billion. That number is expected to triple within the next 2 years. The room was silent. 11 billion dead. And humanity had done nothing. Humanity had simply watched. Professor Oh Minho was 63 years old, with white hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. He was a historian, and for the past 7 years, he had been documenting what he called the human exodus, the complete history of humanity's departure from the galactic stage. Today, he was giving a lecture at Seoul National University. The hall was packed with students who had been born after the departure. Young people who had never known the shame of serving the council, young people who saw their elders as heroes. The question everyone asks, Professor O said, is whether humanity was right to leave. Whether we were right to refuse help when our former masters came begging. He paused, looking at the faces before him. I cannot answer that question. No historian can. We can only present the facts and let each generation decide for themselves. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Burning cities. Starving children. Mass graves floating in space. These are the facts. 11 billion dead. 3 civilizations extinct. 40 more on the edge of collapse. All because humanity was no longer there to hold the galaxy together. A student raised her hand. But Professor, they treated us like slaves. They sabotaged our technology. They killed our people. Why should we feel guilty? Professor O smiled sadly. I did not say we should feel guilty. I said we should remember. There is a difference. He changed the image. Now the display showed Earth. Beautiful, blue, and peaceful. We have built something wonderful here. A civilization of justice and dignity. A place where humans are finally free. That is also a fact. And perhaps it is the only fact that truly matters. The lecture ended. Students filed out, talking among themselves. Professor O gathered his notes and wondered, as he often wondered, what history would say about the choices his generation had made, far from Earth, in a broken shuttle drifting through dying space. Counselor Virith was facing his end. He had once been the most powerful voice in the Helix Collective. He had spoken for billions. He had commanded fleets. He had laughed at a human ambassador and called her species beasts of burden. Now he was alone. His shuttle had no fuel. His supplies were running out. And the plague that was killing his people had finally found him. He could feel it in his blood. A burning that spread slowly through his body. In a few days, he would be dead. Just like everyone else. With shaking hands, he activated his communication system. He did not expect a response. Human space was still closed. But he had to try one more time. This is Counselor Virith of the Helix Collective, he said, his voice weak and broken. I am transmitting to any human vessel in range. I know you have no reason to listen. I know I have no right to ask for anything. But I am asking anyway. He coughed, silver blood staining his lips. I am dying. My people are dying. A plague is destroying everything we built. Our scientists say that only human xenobiology can save us. Only humans understand biological systems well enough to create a cure. He paused, remembering the face of Ambassador Park Yuna, the face he had mocked, the face he had dismissed, the face that had looked at him with more dignity than he had ever shown her. I was wrong. Virith whispered. I was so wrong. You were never beasts. You were never servants. You were the heart of the galaxy, and we were too blind to see it. We treated you with contempt, and you repaid us with centuries of service. And then, when you finally left, we laughed. Tears rolled down his silver face. We are not laughing now. He took a shaking breath. I do not ask you to save me. I do not deserve saving. But there are children on my worlds who did nothing wrong. Innocent lives who should not pay for my sins. Please, if there is any mercy in human hearts, save them. Let my legacy be the one good thing I did at the end. Let me die knowing that my people will survive. He ended the transmission. He did not expect a reply, but far away, in an office on Earth, Secretary General Park Yuna was listening. She was 62 now, her hair white, her face lined with age and wisdom. She had spent the last decade building a new human civilization, a civilization that owed nothing to anyone, a civilization that finally treated its people with respect. And now, on her desk, was a recording of her oldest enemy, begging for mercy. She played it again, and again. She listened to Virith's broken voice. She remembered his laughter. She remembered how it felt to be called a beast of burden in front of 200 species. The door opened. Dr. Beek Sun-woo entered, older now at 42, but still sharp. He was her chief advisor on xenobiological matters. You have heard the transmission, Park Yuna said. It was not a question. Yes, Secretary General. And, Beek hesitated. Then he placed a data chip on her desk. 2 years ago, our scientists solved the Helix plague. We developed a complete cure. I kept it classified, waiting for. I do not know what I was waiting for. A moment like this, perhaps. Park Yuna stared at the chip. Such a small thing. And yet, it contained the salvation of millions. If we release this cure, Beek said carefully, we save 200 million Helix lives. Maybe more. We prove that humanity is better than those who abused us. And if we do not, Beek was silent for a long moment. Then we watch them die. And we carry that weight forever. Park Yuna picked up the chip. She held it in her palm, feeling its weight. Such a small thing. Such an enormous choice. Virith called us beasts, she said quietly. He laughed at our suffering. He would have gladly watched us die if our situations were reversed. Yes. Beck agreed. He would have. So why should we save his people? Beck did not answer. He knew she was not really asking him. Park Yuna sat in silence for a long time. Outside her window, the sun was setting over Seoul. Children were playing in the streets below. Human children, free and happy, living lives their ancestors could only dream of. She thought about justice. She thought about mercy. She thought about what kind of civilization she wanted humanity to become. Finally, she opened her desk drawer. She placed the data chip inside. And she locked the drawer. Not yet, she whispered. But soon. When I am ready. When we are all ready. She did not release the cure that day. But she did not destroy it either. She kept it safe. Waiting for the moment when humanity's heart would be ready to forgive. That moment had not yet come. But Park Yuna believed, deep in her soul, that it would. Somewhere in dying space, Counselor Virith closed his eyes and waited for the end. He never received a reply to his final message, but in a locked drawer on Earth, his people's salvation waited patiently in the darkness, and the galaxy continued to turn. 10 years after humanity walked away, a child changed everything. Her name was Sora. She was 8 years old, with silver skin and 4 arms and eyes that had seen too much death. She was Helix. She was also alone. Her parents had died from the plague when she was 5. Her grandparents had died in the civil wars when she was 6. Her older brother had put her on a refugee ship when she was 7, promising to follow. He never did. The ship had carried her across dying space, dodging pirates and plague ships and the burning ruins of once great civilizations. It had brought her to the edge of human territory, and there, against all regulations, against all orders, a human family had taken her in. They lived on a small colony world called New Busan. The father was a farmer named Kim Junho. The mother was a teacher named Kim Hana. They had 2 children of their own. And when they saw the silver-skinned orphan hiding in the cargo hold of a refugee transport, they could not turn her away. She is just a child, Hana had said to her husband. Whatever her people did, she is innocent. Junho had looked at the little alien girl. He remembered his grandfather's stories about the council. He remembered the anger he had felt as a young man. But looking at this child, this terrified, starving child, he felt something else. He felt pity. All right, he had said. She can stay. But we tell no one. For 2 years, Sora lived with the Kim family. She learned Korean. She ate human food. She played with human children. She called Junho and Hana her parents and meant it with all her heart. She was not the only one. Across human space, thousands of alien refugees had slipped through the borders. Some had bribed patrol captains. Others had hidden in cargo containers. A few had simply been lucky, and everywhere they went, human families had quietly taken them in. It was against the law. It was against everything humanity had decided after the departure. But humans had never been good at watching children suffer. Fleet Commander Han Ji-woo discovered the truth during a routine inspection of the outer colonies. She was 41 now, hardened by a decade of guarding the border. She had turned away thousands of refugees without hesitation. She had believed in the policy completely. Then she met Sora. The little Helix girl looked up at her with frightened eyes. She clutched Kim Hana's hand and tried to hide behind her human mother. And something in Ji-woo's chest cracked. Please, Hana said, stepping in front of the child. She has done nothing wrong. She is just a child. You cannot send her back to die. Ji-woo stared at the family. At the human parents protecting an alien daughter. At the love that had no concern for species or politics. She turned and walked away. That night, she wrote her report. It documented the refugee situation in full detail. Thousands of aliens living secretly in human space. Thousands of human families breaking the law to shelter them, a problem that had grown too big to ignore. She sent the report to Admiral Kang Do-hoon. The admiral was 70 now. Old and tired, carrying the weight of decisions that had shaped a civilization. He read Ji-woo's report 3 times. Then he summoned an emergency session of the Parliament. "We have a choice to make," he told the assembled representatives. "A choice that will define who we are as a people." He projected images on the main screen. Alien children playing with human children. Refugee families working on human farms. Elderly aliens being cared for in human hospitals. These beings came to us because they had nowhere else to go. They are not soldiers. They are not politicians. They are simply people who want to live, and our citizens, in defiance of our laws, have chosen to protect them. The chamber erupted in arguments. Hardliners demanded the refugees be expelled immediately. Moderates called for a more careful approach. The debate went on for hours. Finally, Admiral Kang raised his hand for silence. "I have spent my life protecting humanity," he said slowly. "I have made hard choices, cold choices. I ordered our ships to turn away dying refugees. I watched the galaxy burn and told myself we were right to do nothing." He paused, his old eyes filled with something that might have been regret. "We left the Council to escape their cruelty. But cruelty is not something you escape by running away. It is something you defeat by choosing to be better." He looked at the representatives one by one. "If we send these refugees back to die, we become what we fled from. We become the monsters the Council always was. And I did not spend my life building humanity's freedom just to watch us lose our souls." The vote was close. Closer than anyone expected. But in the end, humanity chose mercy. The Sanctuary Protocol was established. Refugees could enter human space, but under strict conditions. They had to renounce all ties to former Council species. They had to swear loyalty to human law, and they had to wait 1 generation before receiving full citizenship. It was not perfect. Many argued it was too generous. Others said it was not generous enough. But it was a beginning. On New Busan, Sora heard the news and cried. Happy tears. For the first time since she could remember. "Does this mean I can stay?" she asked her human mother. Hana hugged her tight. "Yes, little one. You can stay forever." That same week, Dr. Baek Sunwoo finally released the Helix plague cure. He did not give it to the Helix government. There was no Helix government anymore. Instead, he gave it to independent humanitarian ships. Volunteers from a dozen species who had been trying to help the dying civilizations despite everything. The cure spread slowly. It was not enough to save everyone. Too many had already died. But it was enough to stop the extinction. 200 million Helix would survive because of human science, because of a cure that had sat in a locked drawer for 2 years, waiting for the right moment. When Secretary General Park Yuna heard the news, she smiled for the first time in months. "We did the right thing," she said to herself. Eventually, we did the right thing. On the colony world of New Busan, the Kim family officially adopted Sora. The ceremony was small and quiet. Just a family, a judge, and a few neighbors who had kept their secret for 2 years. Sora wore a traditional Korean dress that Hana had made for her. It looked strange on her silver skin and forearms. It was also the most beautiful thing she had ever worn. "Do you, Sora, accept Kim Junho and Kim Hana as your parents?" the judge asked. "Do you accept their family as your family? Their home as your home? Their people as your people?" Sora looked at the humans who had saved her. The father who taught her to farm. The mother who taught her to read. The siblings who played with her and fought with her and loved her. "Yes," she said in perfect Korean. "I do." That night, Sora stood at her bedroom window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still burning. Somewhere out there, her birth people were still dying. But here, on this small world, surrounded by humans who loved her, she was home. Admiral Kang Do-hun died 3 months later. He passed peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family and friends. His last words were simple. "We did our best. I hope it was enough." His funeral was broadcast across all human space. Billions watched as he was laid to rest. Heroes did not often have peaceful deaths. Kang was one of the lucky ones. At the funeral, Fleet Commander Han Ji-woo stood at attention and thought about all the refugees she had turned away. All the desperate faces. All the pleas she had ignored. She had been following orders. She had been protecting humanity. But some of those faces still haunted her dreams. She made a silent promise to the Admiral's grave. She would not forget. She would not become cold again. Whatever the future held, she would remember that mercy was not weakness. It was strength, the strongest strength there was. 25 years after humanity walked away, the galaxy asked them to come back. The request came in the form of a joint petition, signed by the surviving representatives of 47 species. It was delivered to Earth by a convoy of unarmed ships, their weapons removed as a sign of good faith. It was the first time in a generation that alien vessels had been allowed to approach human space. President Choi Tae-ho received the petition in his office in Seoul. He was 52 now, his hair gray at the temples, his hands still stained with machine oil from tinkering with inventions in his spare time. He had gone from brilliant engineer to reluctant politician, chosen by the people because they trusted him to lead with both wisdom and humility. He read the petition 3 times. Then he called a meeting of his closest advisors. Admiral Han Ji-woo arrived first. She was 66 now, still sharp, still commanding the fleet that protected human space. Her hair was white, but her eyes were as fierce as ever. Ambassador Sora arrived second. She was 33 years old, silver-skinned and four-armed, the former refugee child who had become humanity's voice to the stars. She was the living proof that species meant nothing when hearts were open. Dr. Park Yuna arrived last. She was 87 now, long retired from politics, using a walking stick to get around. But when the president called, she came. Some things were too important to miss. They want a new alliance, President Choi said, placing the petition on the table. Not like the old council. Something different. Something based on equality and mutual respect. Admiral Ji-woo picked up the document and studied it. Pretty words, she said. Words are easy. The old council spoke of unity and cooperation too. Look how that turned out. The galaxy has changed, Ambassador Sora said quietly. The species that abused humanity are gone or broken. The ones who survive are different now. They have learned humility through suffering. Have they? Ji-woo asked. Or are they simply desperate again? Will they treat us as equals when they are strong, or only when they need us? It was a fair question. No one had an easy answer. Dr. Park Yuna had been silent, listening to the debate. Now she spoke, her voice thin but steady. 25 years ago, I watched an alien call us beasts of burden. I felt more shame in that moment than I had ever felt in my life. Not shame for humanity, shame for the galaxy. Shame that intelligent beings could treat each other with such contempt. She looked at the faces around the table. We proved we could survive without them. We built a civilization that treats its people with dignity. We showed the universe that humanity does not need to kneel to anyone. She smiled, old and tired and wise. Now we have a different question. Not whether we can survive alone, but whether we are brave enough to try again. To offer trust where trust was broken. To build something better than what came before. President Choi nodded slowly. What do you recommend? Park Yuna laughed softly. I am old. I will not live to see what comes next. That is for your generation to decide. But I will tell you what I told myself when I locked the plague cure in my desk drawer. She leaned forward. Revenge is easy. Hate is easy. But building something that lasts requires courage. The courage to forgive. The courage to try. The courage to believe that people can change. She sat back. We proved we could survive alone. Now prove we can lead. The meeting lasted for hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Fears were expressed. Hopes were shared. By the end, a decision had been reached. President Choi brought the matter before the full parliament. The debate went on for days. Every representative had an opinion. Every citizen watched the broadcasts. This was the most important vote since the departure itself. In the end, humanity chose hope. The new compact was established. It would be a voluntary alliance, built on principles that the old council had never followed. Equal representation for all species, fair trade with no exploitation, shared technology with proper compensation, and one absolute rule. The moment any species attempted to exploit another, the compact would dissolve. Earth would participate. But Earth would lead by example, not by force, and Earth would never forget. The first session of the new compact was held on a space station called Harmony, built in neutral territory between human space and the ruins of the old council. Representatives from 47 species gathered in a chamber designed to make no one feel small. Ambassador Sora represented humanity. She stood at the central platform and looked at the assembled delegates. Some she recognized from her childhood. Species that had once ruled the galaxy. They looked different now. Humbler, sadder, wiser, perhaps. Others were species she had never met. Survivors who had found each other in the chaos, building small alliances of mutual aid while the great powers fell. These were the ones who had drafted the petition. The ones who truly wanted a new beginning. Sora took a deep breath. She thought of her parents, the Helix who had died from plague and war. She thought of her other parents, the humans who had taken her in and given her a home. She thought of Admiral Kang, who had taught humanity to stand tall. She thought of Secretary General Park, who had taught humanity to choose mercy. She thought of everyone who had brought her to this moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm and clear, translated into 100 languages by the station's systems. But she spoke in Korean first, because that was who she was now. A child of two peoples, a bridge between two worlds. My people once called yours monsters, she said, looking at the human delegates behind her. Your people once called mine beasts. She turned to face the alien representatives. We were both wrong. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on her. For 300 years, the galaxy ran on exploitation. The strong took from the weak. The old crushed the young. Trust was a weakness to be exploited, and kindness was a mistake to be punished. She paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity left because they could no longer bear that system. And without humanity, that system destroyed itself. The old order collapsed. Billions died. Civilizations that had stood for millennia are now memories and dust. She shook her head slowly. That is what exploitation brings. That is the true cost of cruelty. Not just suffering for the victims, but destruction for everyone, including the oppressors. She straightened her shoulders. Today, we have a choice. We can rebuild the old system. We can find new ways to exploit each other, new ways to take without giving, new ways to build empires on the backs of the weak, and in another few centuries, we will gather in another ruined chamber and wonder why everything fell apart again. Her voice grew stronger. Or we can try something different. We can build a system based on respect, on fairness, on the simple idea that every species, every civilization, every individual has value that cannot be measured in resources or soldiers. She looked at each delegation in turn. I am not human. I was born Helix, a species that treated humanity with contempt, but I was raised by humans. They took me in when my own people would have let me die. They showed me that kindness is not weakness, that mercy is not foolishness, that love does not recognize species boundaries. She placed her 4 hands on the podium. I stand here today as proof that the galaxy can change, that we do not have to be defined by the sins of our ancestors, that each generation can choose to be better than the one before. She smiled, and it was a smile of hope. Today, we are neither monsters nor beasts. We are simply beings, trying to survive in an uncaring universe. Let this be the day we stop surviving alone. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, the delegates began to applaud. One by one, species by species, until the entire hall was filled with the sound of hope. Outside the station windows, human and alien ships drifted together in peaceful orbit. They were still wary of each other, still uncertain, still carrying the wounds of generations of mistrust, but they were there, together, trying, and that was a beginning. Far away, on Earth, Dr. Park Yuna watched the broadcast from her retirement home. She was alone in her room, too old to travel, too tired to celebrate, but her eyes were bright as she watched her adopted daughter address the galaxy. We did it, she whispered to no one. We really did it. She closed her eyes and smiled. The stars, at last, were quiet, and somewhere in the vastness of space, A new chapter was beginning. A chapter written not in blood and exploitation, but in hope and cooperation. Humanity had walked away from the galaxy. Now they were walking back, but this time, they walked as equals, as leaders, as teachers, as humanity, and the universe would never be the same.